All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostle elders, a great millstone who rule well, and salutations to all you brothers out there pushing this word in love, truth, sincerity, and humility. Once again, it's the brother Shatir from the Chicago camp coming back to you with what I hope is another quick and edifying sit down. All right. What we have here, as you can see from the headline, it says Republicans will come from Brown versus Board of Education. Now, if you don't know, this was a law that was put into place some years ago that desegregated schools. Make a long story short. And this lady is going to tell you the steps that are about to be put in place to completely segregate schools, which should not be a surprise because this all was written in Project 2025. So let's let this woman speak and we'll get some scripture.
Republicans are going to try and overturn Brown versus Board of Education. All signs right now are pointing to a push towards segregated schools once again, especially after Donald Trump rescinded Executive Order 11246, which was LBJ's executive order that prohibited federal contractors from discriminating and segregating. It certainly raised some red flags in me that there's going to be some potential challenges to Brown versus Board of Education and desegregation very soon. There's four main pathways that the Trump administration is going to use to challenge Brown versus Board of Education, and understand that most of these four are already in action. Number one is judicial appointments. The Trump administration has nominated several judges that have refused to acknowledge the correctness of the Brown v. Board of Education ruling, which signals that they're not going to make any efforts to uphold the ruling if it comes in their court. Second pathway is dismantling the Department of Education, and they've already started that process. Dismantling the Department of Education and shifting control of public education to the states is just an effort to give states an opportunity to vary their enforcement of desegregation practices, which will most certainly lead to a challenge to the Brown v. Board of Education ruling. Number three is rescinding anti-segregation orders, which Donald Trump has done with rescinding Executive Order 11246. Number four is going to funnel down to state level action, giving more power to states to make funding decisions about public school is going to give them opportunities to challenge desegregation practices. And there are certain things that they're going to do. I'm going to outline these next. Here are some state level legislative actions that we can see happen that are going to challenge the validity of the Brown versus Board of Education ruling. School voucher programs, charter school expansion, redistricting school boundaries, repealing diversity initiatives, and limiting transportation funding. So basically, you give rich white families the opportunity to move their children out of public school. Then you expand state-level support of charter school systems, which further entrenches desegregation because these schools can also decide which type of students they can admit and not admit. Then you redistrict the school boundaries to make it basically gerrymandered to the point where only kids from certain communities go to certain schools. This is already the reality for the most part, but if Republicans get their way, they'll do it to an exponential degree. Then you take away DEI, which he's already doing, and you limit transportation funding and make it nearly impossible for those kids to be able to get to the schoolhouse. Now, there's also three legal tactics that states are going to employ. First of all, states could just sue the federal government over the constitutionality of desegregation laws. It's making it a states' rights issue. They could also enact a series of contradictory laws on the state level, and anything that contradicts federal law would most certainly get contested in the Supreme Court, which is exactly what they want to happen. And this is the most frightening one of all. Number four is utilizing school choice as a legal argument and calling it a civil rights issue. And we're already seeing Ted Cruz doing this on camera, calling parental rights and school choice a civil rights issue. Ever since the Brown versus Board of Education ruling, Republicans have argued that that is a direct reason why schools are worse. This is coming. This is what they've wanted since day one. And if Donald Trump is already signaling by executive order that he doesn't care if federal contractors segregate facilities and discriminate in hiring practices, then the mandate for public school to be segregated once again is coming. It's coming. Republicans are...
Yep. And as I've been telling you, brothers and sisters out there, you can't look at this as a bad thing. All right, because you have to say to yourself, since we've integrated and in these schools with bad Uncle Esau, what have we truly learned? Think about it. What have we truly learned that will benefit us? I can tell you not a damn thing. Because they're not teaching the Bible. They're not teaching our history and who we are. So what is the point of being in their schools? All right. They barely want to teach you any type of trade or any type of education that you can use to practically help you in your life. So I mean, if they don't want darkies in their school anymore, I mean, as I said, it should kind of be looked at as a blessing in disguise, because since we've been integrated with these folks, okay, our people have just become more stupid as the years have gone by. And if you don't believe me, check this book out. Let me put this on pause. I'm going to bring it up real quick. All right. This is a book by a former teacher, and it's called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Let's read the synopsis of this book. Okay. It says the book traces the history of education, mostly in government schools, but some in private schools and private home schools, from the late 1800s to 1999. The author shares people's names, companies, government organizations, national and international groups that have had their fingers in this deliberate process over the years. It is very disturbing. Some of them were people you would have thought you could trust. The main agenda, cutting through all the smoke and mirrors, is to make the people lemming-like so they will follow the enlightened toward a global, godless, Marxist-like society. Their plan has been and still is to do it incrementally in tiny steps. That's what one of the Rockefellers was always talking about, gradualism. It says so that most people won't notice. They have been extremely successful because the media and the government, both major parties and a few minor parties, endorse the agenda and cheer it on. Some know exactly what they are doing while others are blind, but think they are doing the right thing. The tendency is to think that everyone else was dumbed down except yourself. Anyone who is willing to read this is likely less affected than the masses. But you will find that almost no one educated in America over the past 100+ years has finished their education years with a pure education. But it's been especially bad in the more recent years. So there is a reason why I always say we are living in the idiocracy. All right, because you're not learning anything in these schools. Okay, at least when Jake was being schooled in their own schools where it was their own people, they were learning something. But getting integrated with these guys, Jake has gotten stupid, seriously stupid. As I said, they're not teaching the Bible, which you're supposed to be doing. All right, let me get that real quick. Let me put it on pause and find. Here we go. Deuteronomy 6:6. It says, all these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the post of thy house and on thy gates. Okay? And as you can see, they have completely taken God and the Bible out of school. What did that book say? A godless Marxist society. They have completely taken the Bible out of schools. And it affects us more than anybody else because we are the children of the Lord. As the scripture just said, we are supposed to be taught and raised up in the ways of the Bible. But that is not being preached. Because now, since we've been integrated with the heathen, everything, as I mentioned before, has just gone downwards. And I'm going to get that too. We can get one or two situations. Let me see. Oh, I know which one I could get. Let me put it on pause real quick and find it. All right, this is First Maccabees 1:1. And this is what happens when we start integrating with the heathen. It says, in those days went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Okay? And what type of mischief was that? Let's go to 2 Maccabees. What's that? 4? Was it 4 and 11, 4 and 12? 2 Maccabees 4:12. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat. Now such was the height of Greek fashion, and increase of the heathenish manners, okay, through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest, that the priest had no courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifice, and hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise. After the game of discus called them forth, not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all, by reason whereof sore calamity came upon them, for they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose custom they followed so earnestly, and unto whom they desired to be like in all things. Right. So once we joined into these heathens and started not observing the law, statutes, and commandments in the Bible, okay, we became less. We became beast, as the scripture says, that degenerate vine. Okay, we became a people that were mere shells of our former self. And as the scripture says, there's no new thing under the sun. You still have it here going on today, especially here in America, Babylon the snake. There are so many people here in the United States who have absolutely no clue, absolutely no clue that our people were ruling Europe for 1,000 years. Absolutely no clue. They have no clue that this, my screensaver right here, is a black Madonna on the island of Sicily, with the quote of Song of Solomon, I believe, the first chapter and the 5th verse. Our people have no clue about this history, let alone knowing that they are the Israelites and these people who ruled Europe were Israelites. So if they want to segregate schools, as I said before, it ain't necessarily a bad thing. Because we all know what happens when Jake is left to themselves to figure things out. Black Wall Street, Elaine, Arkansas, okay? Bronzeville here in Chicago. All right, that's what happens when Jake is left to themselves. So you know it's something to consider. But that's all I wanted to say on this. I hope you all were edified. Until the next time, we're going to say shalom.